son?
Uncle Rick, warm yourself up with a hot coffee or cappuccino at Clark's Pub and Shop.
Kappa what?
Cappuccino. And while you're there, be sure to pick up some of our in-store specials. We have assorted Hershey, Reese, Kit Kat, and Payday standard size candy bars, 2 for $3, and Nature Valley granola bars, 2 for $2.
I feel warmer already. Clark's Pub and Shop. Return, refresh, refuel.
Back to No Filter Radio with Alan Cutler. Podcasts on Apple, Spotify, and Google, Monday through Friday.
Welcome back. I hope Bob laughs at me. So let me introduce him in a second. So Bob, in 99, he started doing as the voice of the Volunteers. And I'm trying to think of, off my memory, I bet I can remember all the football coaches he called for. I did not. Bob, I'm embarrassed. Let me introduce you. I missed 2. Fulmer, I remember. Kiffin. Yeah. How could you forget? Derek Dooley, I forgot. Butch Jones, I really forgot. I don't know why I remember Jeremy Pruitt, and Josh Heupel. I couldn't forget. Wow. What a collection of characters. You could write a book that you can't. I know.
Lane Kiffin? You got Lane Kiffin in there too, didn't you? For a year?
Yeah, I said Kiffin, I remembered.
Okay. Yeah, it was wild. It was and went through some basketball coaches. You know, we had Conzo Martin, and we had just Wade Houston and Donnie Tyndall. We had a lot of, Bruce Pearl. So it's amazing. Buzz Peterson, amazing. And of course now, Rick Barnes for the past, my last 10 years. So yeah, I went through a lot of coaches. Hosted a lot of press conferences introducing new coaches at Tennessee.
I forgot about Tyndall, and I really thought he could have been a really special coach had he kept down a certain line, whatever limit.
Yeah, he was a very good basketball coach.
Yep.
Just some other thing, And Alan, I've said this for years. These SEC programs and Big Ten programs and Big 12s, you've got to have a certain skill set to get one of those jobs. But the problem is when you get there, you're not used to it spinning so fast. There are a lot of things you've got to do to run an SEC program, from boosters to recruiting to everything you've got to do, coaching and media responsibilities. And sometimes it just gets away from you. And that's what happened with a lot of these Tennessee coaches. And there have been a lot of talented guys, but these jobs are hard to keep unless you can delegate and do a lot of things that some of these coaches aren't used to doing. I mean, right now, most of these SEC coaches, not only do they have they got to manage a roster of over 100 kids, most of them have staffs of about 60 or 70 people. When you get to analysts and strength coaches and all those type things and graduate assistants, and you're responsible for all those guys. One of those guys slips up, and it's on your record. So it really starts spinning pretty fast, and the ones that can handle it are the ones that survive.
Clean, steady storyteller, very, quote, voice of the Vols. So says Chat GPT. Bob Kessling, a great broadcaster forever.
Yeah.
His retirement. Are you going nuts not calling the games, or was it the right time, or there's got to be some withdrawals?
I'm an official granddad Uber driver right now. We've got basketball. 2 weeks ago, Alan, we had baseball practice in the morning.
Okay.
We had 3 basketball games at 3 different sites on 2 different teams. So my Saturdays are bopping and they weren't close. I mean, one's up in Union County and one's, in Greenville. I mean, they're all over the place, but that's great. And I've really enjoyed, one thing I've really enjoyed too, I've gotten to do a bunch of stuff that I hadn't had a chance to do. I went to the Army-Navy game this year. I have a high school teammate, Chet Moeller, who was an All-American football player at Navy. The first defensive, they had one All-American this year, but it'd been 50 years since they had an All-American defensive player, and Chet was the last one in the College Football Hall of Fame. And so I got a chance to go with him to the Army-Navy game this year. And walking around the Naval Academy with Chet, I mean, he's treated like royalty up there, and then go to the game and see all that. I was never able to do that. I've gone to other college football games that I haven't been able to do. I spent a lot of time on the baseball diamond. in the fall, watching my grandkids play baseball. So I haven't missed it as much as I thought I would. You miss the games. You know, Alan, how it is when you get to the stadium, you get to the arena. There's all that excitement, all that adrenaline, but it's all the other stuff that I really don't miss. And so I'd rather be with my grandkids than trying to get to Starkville or trying to get to Fayetteville on a Saturday.
When Kaywood retired, I went to his home, and he fixed up the home where he was born, and he made it into a palace. I've never seen a home that had so many pictures. He had huge pictures in his laundry room. We did about 20 seconds just on the pictures. It was from Muhammad Ali to whatever, because, as you remember, he also did sports in Louisville TV.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And people forget that. It was magnificent. And so, come on, you knew Kaywood really well, and
Well,
always classy. And I said the wrong word. Give me a second, Bob. And I said, is there anything you miss? And usually with these kinds of things, you kind of can guess the answer. He paused, looked down, he looked up and said, I'm not going to miss the trips to Starkville, Mississippi.
It's a tough place to get to. Alan, when, of course, I think this is the first time in over 40 years that I haven't covered or broadcast a game from Rupp Arena. So it's going to be really strange for me not being at the game on Saturday. But in 1992, I'm working for Jefferson Pilot, which is now the SEC Network. And this particular Saturday, I was supposed to host the pregame show. We had a 30-minute pregame show. Tom Hammond and Larry Conley are supposed to do the game. Tom Hammond, Dan Issel are supposed to do the game. Well, Tom got called away for an NBC assignment. So Jimmy Rayburn, our executive producer, said, Bob, can you do the game and the pregame? I said, of course. So my first play-by-play broadcast for Jefferson Pilot was Kaywood's last game at Rupp Arena.
Oh my, you just gave me a chill, Bob.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm sitting there at midcourt. Kaywood and Ralph are sitting here to my left. John Ward, the Tennessee announcer, is sitting to my right.
Legendary.
We're on stools at midcourt at Rupp Arena. Dan Issel and myself. Dan's my color, the leading scorer in Kentucky history. It's Tennessee and Kentucky. It's Pelfrey and Farmer and all those guys, Allen Houston. And they're playing my old Kentucky home. And I'm thinking, if I get hit by a bus on my way to the parking lot, I'm going to be okay, because it ain't going to get much better than this. It was such a wonderful. But you mentioned Kaywood. I was just a young guy just trying to figure my way through this broadcast business. And Kaywood was always such a gentleman, because I was a nobody. But he would always come up to me before the game, of course, dressed, like $1 million, coat and tie and silk ties and all that stuff. Always looked great. But he'd always come up to me and, Bob, do you need anything? Need anything about Kentucky? He was always so gracious and always such a gentleman. And I just really enjoyed being around him. But that's a memory I'm never going to forget, doing Kaywood's last game at Rupp Arena.
That's painting a beautiful picture, Bob. It's too bad if this were today with cell phones, you probably have 30 pictures. I hope you have one picture of that. Let's put it this way. You just painted a beautiful picture from your mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's having some other pictures. By the way, I didn't know that about Kaywood for you specifically, but I've heard that Kaywood did that to a lot of others. He would just quietly, no fuss, not looking for any publicity. Can I help you? And he did that to a whole lot of people and didn't want any publicity. He was old school, that you do things for the right reasons.
Yeah. Hey, Ralph Hacker told me a great story. He said when he got teamed up with Kaywood, apparently they were doing a game at Freedom Hall. And Ralph somehow got off kilter a little bit, getting all the commercials and stuff in during the pregame show. And so now they're getting ready to start the game, and they're still in a commercial break. And Burl Crowell, who's the legendary official, is kind of walking the midcourt, and Ralph yells at him, "Hey, Burl, come over here." Said, listen, I kind of screwed up. We're still in a commercial break. Is there any way that you could delay for about 15 or 20 seconds throwing the ball up, so I make sure, we get the opening tip? And Burl said, I'd be happy to do that if you promise me that Kaywood will say something nice about me during the broadcast. And at that point, Kaywood looked up at him and said, if that's the case, throw it up right now. Let's go. So Ralph told me that story, and I just died laughing. I could hear Kaywood doing that. Whether it's true or not, who cares? Well, it's a great story. But I'll say this, and I was a big radio guy. I mean, I would, when I was a kid in high school, I'd have the transistor radio under my pillow, and I would listen to
You
the Dayton game. Then I'd listen to Ohio State, and then I'd go over and I listened to Indiana, and so I just went from place to and same thing in baseball. You do the Reds game, and then you go find Jack Buck and Harry Carey, and then you do Bob Prince and all that kind of stuff. So I just grew up on that. But listening to Kaywood and Ralph, that was one of the greatest sounding broadcasts, I thought, in college basketball. The two of those guys together worked so well together. Ralph had the great voice. Kaywood had that distinctive bourbon laced voice of his. And I just always thought they were a tremendous team and a great broadcast and great ambassadors for Kentucky.
You just gave me chills twice. That's pretty good for an old guy my age. The only thing I remember my dad buying me was a cheap $4.95. It's funny, the little things you remember. GE transistor radio. And I'd put it under my pillow at night. And I would listen to Philadelphia baseball and all the Yankees and Mets and that kind of stuff. And when the Nets were on a tiny Jersey station, and occasionally I can get in KMOX.
Oh, yeah.
Rarely could I get Boston. And then somebody might come in and say, shut that off. You got to go to sleep. Not me, but do it. And I would do it. And then I'd wait till it was really quiet and I'd turn it back on. And I can't tell you how many nights I spent listening to the radio as a child and fantasizing about my future.
It was amazing because there you are and it's dark and in your bedroom and suddenly you're in the middle of Assembly Hall in Bloomington, or you're at a date playing at DePaul or Marquette or someplace, and it's you and that announcer, and what a bond you developed with that guy, because it's just you and him. And that's when you kind of learned that while this is a mass media, radio and television, you're really only talking to one guy. And I remember I got one of my first radio jobs here at WIBK in town, and I was doing high school football scores. One of the first night, I think, that I was supposed to do the high school scoreboard. And I was pretty good with Central and Halls and Bearden and Farragut and some of the scores. And then Ooltewah came up. And I had no idea how to pronounce Ooltewah. And I'm going, ooh. And the disc jockey's name was Suitcase Simpson, because he'd been around, traveled around so much. He'd been all these different spots. So his nickname was Suitcase. And so I thought my career was over. I'm sitting there and I'm going, gosh, I've blown this, and these people in Ooltewah are going to hate me the rest of their lives, and this stuff was terrible. And he came into the little sports office there, and he goes, Bob, just remember, it's you and the microphone. And it's you and that one guy who's driving around in a pickup truck. And it's you and that guy that's sitting at home on his deck listening to you. Don't think about the mass audience. It's a one-on-one art form that you have to do. You're talking to one person. And I never forgot that, because, most of the time when you're listening to a broadcast, it's just you in a car or you sitting in your den, and it's just you and that announcer. And so you talk to people. You don't, talk at them. You talk to them, and it's you and them. And you, by gosh, you're bunkered down together trying to get your home team to a victory that night, and living and dying with every play. So there's a magic to what we do, Alan, and it's you never forget it.
Bob Kessling, the great voice forever for Tennessee, kind enough to join us. This is 3 times. If I have a chill a 4th time, I'm gonna have to go to the hospital. And I've ever gotten in broadcasting. My first gig, I'm gonna do it quickly because I'm more interested in you than me, but our parallels I always thought were pretty good, but this is getting crazy eerie. So I'm doing Little League Baseball on an FM rock station in Farmington, New Mexico. The joke was I was the only person east of the Mississippi living in that town. I used to, and I mean this seriously, this is no disrespect, step over at times drunk Indians to get to work because of some of the things that went on in the community, and they should have helped them more. And it was sad. Okay. But at the end of the Little League Baseball, they gave me a board shift just to keep me around. I was making, $100 a week. I mean, it was a lot of money back then. And you would bring a stack of records. Jimmy doesn't even know what a record is. Jimmy's looking at records and the standard stuff. The last song before anybody had a shift, they put on a long record so you can put your stuff in and you get out. And the studio was like a closet. This is Farmington, New Mexico. And there were times when I'd walk in and I could smell pot. I couldn't believe the guy would smoke pot. I'm not going to say
At a radio station and set. I can't believe that.
he was smell it. So I walked in the first time and I put my Rex down, look to the right, and there's a centerfold, a Playboy centerfold. I look at the centerfold, I look at the DJ, I can smell the pot. I'm going up and back, up and back. Come on, I'm 21 years old. I'm not going to say a word. So when we switched with the shift, he goes, do you wonder why I have that picture up? I'm not going to ask. Okay. Okay. Why? He goes, that's who I'm talking to.
Whoa.
It's the best lesson I had my entire career. And he said, when I look at that picture, I smile. So when I'm smiling. And as long as I'm talking to her, whoever it is, I'm going to do a good job. Best lesson I had you never know who you learn from.
That's right.
And I've shared that story with a lot of young broadcasters. And I'm telling you, the studio, it's much smaller than in my office now that we're doing it. We've had so many similarities, Bob.
Yeah. Well, when I used to host the SEC tournament for Jefferson Pilot, I mean, here we are in the Georgia Dome. There's 15,000 people, Arkansas and Kentucky are playing and the place is going crazy. And you've got to introduce and send it down to Tom Hammond and Larry Conley. And it can overwhelm you if you start thinking about the crowd and everybody that's watching and all that kind of stuff. But what you have to focus on is you're talking to the camera lens. It's just you and that camera lens, the two of you. And once you do that, you break it all down. It makes it doesn't never make it easy, but it makes it easier. And you don't get so nervous. My favorite story, I think, and you talk about what this profession and what you do and how meaningful it can be. I was doing the Big Orange Caravan my last year. And, you go around to the different cities in the state and you sign autographs and they want to talk to the coaches and all that stuff. And it's a great fan building exercise. And they told me there was a young man that wanted to meet me. I said, okay, that's great. And so I go to the door of the front of the building there, the convention center. And there's a young man and he had a cane and he was blind. And his name was Ryan. And he said, Bob, this is Ryan Coggins. I said, Ryan, how you doing? He said, I've always wanted to meet you. He said, you're my link to Tennessee sports. He said, I listen to every word you say. And he said, you're how I connect with Tennessee. And I'm such a big Vols fan. And you can't imagine what a big honor this is to meet you. And I said, well, okay, have you met Coach Heupel yet? No. Well, we'll make sure you meet the coaches and Coach Caldwell and everything. But I really appreciate, you wanting to meet me, Ryan. It means a lot to me. I said, have you ever been to a Tennessee football game? He said, no, I never have. I said, would you like to go to one? He said, oh, I'd love to. I said, we're going to make that happen. So I got him a press pass and I got 2 tickets for his grandmother and her husband. And they brought him to the game. And he's sitting up in the third row of our booth, got a headset on. And it's amazing because he had never heard the crowd. He'd never heard the band. He'd never heard when they ran through the tee and what it sounded like. And so during the broadcast, I'd look back up at him once in a while. He had this big smile on his face. And so when the game was over, I had to get out and go downstairs and do the post-game locker room stuff. And I said, Ryan, did you enjoy the game? He said, oh, it was unbelievable. He said, when they ran through the tee, I could feel my heart pounding. And it was just, the band was just so unbelievable. I said, well, Ryan, I'm glad you had a good time. And he said, Bob, this was the greatest night of my life. I mean, those are the things that we sometimes take for granted, but we have such a big impact on people and we can change, how they look at things. And I mean, that was a life-changing moment for me just because it really hadn't hit me that much about what an impact and how many people rely on your work and your broadcast. And you need to do a best job you can because it was a special night for me and for Ryan.
I can see your eyes, and anybody watching on YouTube, we know each other a little bit for 1,000 days, but I could feel your emotion and I can see it in your eyes. I mean, you've been a very lucky man, but one of the things I've always respected about you, you're a lucky man.
Yeah.
Not an ego thing. You're a lucky man. I'm a lucky man.
Right.
And the grace of God, these things have happened.
Oh yeah, yeah. You know, it was funny when I was working at WIVK, while I was in college. Also, I worked for the old Knoxville Sox baseball team, which are now the Tennessee Smokies, or I guess now the Knoxville Smokies. They moved back to town, and so when I graduated, I got to get a job, getting ready to get married, and all this kind of stuff. Well, with my baseball background, I was the assistant general manager, Alan. I was the number two man on a two-man staff. So put the flag up, took the uniforms, over, took guys to the doctor. I did everything. Turned the lights out after the game, sold tickets, took hot dogs up to the press box. I mean, I did everything. One of the greatest college jobs you ever could have. So now I'm graduating, and I've got to go get a job, and so I'm going to go to Nashville and get a baseball job. My goal then was to be the next general manager of the Chicago White Sox because we were a White Sox affiliate. And so I'm leaving the parking lot at WIVK, and Bobby Denton, who was our general manager and afternoon disc jockey, said, "Where are you going, hotshot?" I said, "Well, I'm going over to Nashville to get a baseball job." So what do you mean? He said, "Well, I got to get a job. I got to get, make more than the $8,000 a year you're paying me. I've got to get a job. He said, "Well, we just bought WKDA over in Nashville, and we're going to send Paul Lyle over there to be the sports director. Why don't you stay here and be our sports director?" I said, "What, do I get benefits?" He said, "Yeah." "Health insurance?" "Yeah." "All right, I'll stay." So that's how close I came to not even being in radio and being in the media. I was about ready to go to Nashville and get a baseball job, but somehow, the grace of God interrupted, and Bobby kept me in Knoxville, and I was able to start and build my career. So I'm very fortunate that Bobby kind of changed my life.
Amazing. As assistant general manager. Well,
Number two, man. Our general manager was Bill Reap. He was about 80 years old. They called him the Creeper. And so I got to do everything he didn't want to do. He wouldn't let me touch the money now. I couldn't give out meal money or any of that kind of stuff. But I did everything else. Wrote press releases and did the lineups. And I mean, but I had a great time. A bunch of those guys on those uh, teams. We won the Southern League in '74 and also in '78 when I was hanging around the team. And a bunch of those guys went to the big leagues. Rich Dotson and Ken Kravick and a bunch of different guys, Mike Squires. So we had a bunch of guys from those teams that went to the big leagues, and that was really a lot of fun getting to watch those guys and staying in touch with them after they got to the big leagues. So, but anyway, I missed out on being a baseball GM, but it worked out pretty good for me.
I think it did too. I think it did too. I don't think you have any complaints at all. So when you high school football in Ohio, did you know that all this could possibly happen to you?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, I was an okay high school football player. I played at Fairmont West in Kettering, just outside Dayton. And I was being recruited by some smaller schools like Ohio Wesleyan and Muskingum and Denison and some of those schools. And so I was going to go someplace and play college football. I wasn't sure where I was going to go, but I was looking at those different schools. And then I had a buddy who his dad knew Ray Mears. Ray Mears was the coach in Wittenberg at Springfield before he went to Tennessee. But so my friend's dad knew Mears, and so he was coming down to try and be a manager on the basketball team, and they wanted to know if I wanted to come with them. Well, I didn't even know where Tennessee was, and I said sure. So while they're talking to Coach Mears, I walked over to the football office. I said, "What does it take to walk on the football program here?" And the secretary says, "I don't know. You want to talk to Coach Battle?" Then 5 minutes, I'm in Bill Battle's office.
You got to be kidding.
No, it was unbelievable. And he was telling me how they're going to run the offense. "Let me take you down to the freshman running back." We had freshman football, freshman running back room, and Kurt Watson and Don McCleary, great running backs at Tennessee, were the freshman coaches. They put on the film and they showed me the veer, how Condridge Holloway was going to run it, now what the fullback did. And they walked me back down to Coach Battle's office, and he handed me a workout sheet. And he said, if we'd love to have you walk on the football team here. I didn't even have a program or a piece of film proving I played high school football. But apparently, as I found out later, he knew our coach, and I think he made some phone calls while I was down there talking to Kurt Watson and those guys. But they invited me to walk on, and I was thrilled. So I called my dad. My dad was a drum major at Ohio State, leading the marching band. So he's big time Buckeye. And so I called him and said, "Dad, listen, I think I'm going to walk on at Tennessee." He said, no, 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 no. If you're going to walk on at a big school, you got to walk on at Ohio State. And I told him, Dad, it is cheaper for me to go to Tennessee out of state than it is for me to go to Ohio State in state. And his next comment was, go Vols. And so that's what got me to Tennessee. So it wasn't a magic formula or a hard sell on my dad's part. He kind of understood where we were coming. But anyway, so I came down to Tennessee, didn't know anybody on the team, didn't know other than the brief encounter I had with Coach Battle. Battle, he never knew my name, I don't think. But we had freshman football, and I got to play. We played against Notre Dame and Alabama and Kentucky and a bunch of I don't. We played 7 or 8 freshman games and stuff like that, and I enjoyed it. But the writing was on the wall. You know, walk-ons. It's very very hard, and to make it as a walk-on. And they told me I was going to be redshirted, and then this that, and so it might be 2 or 3 more years before I even got back on the football field. And I just thought, this has been great, but I probably need to get on with my studies and get on with my life. But I still have some friends from that freshman football team. And I got to play quite a bit. So, and that's when you think, Alan, should I have stuck it out? Should I have tried it, or did I have enough? And that's something that you kind of take to your grave, I guess. But I enjoyed the one year I played, and who knows if I would have stuck it out. I don't think I ever would have been all SEC, but maybe I would have gotten a chance to play a little bit.
Okay, that would be cool. I don't think you should have regrets with all the beautiful things that you've done and the respect that you have, but I get where you're coming from, the regrets. By the way, there was another aha moment that I interrupted you too much as it is, because that's what I do, as you know. But you had something else you said you did that's been on my bucket list. I've always wanted to see an Army-Navy game. And Dick Hoops Weiss, a dear friend of mine, has said, big boy, when you want to go, I'll go with you. And my brother has said, we'll meet you there. And because now with the broadcasting, I just haven't done it. And I think next year I'm just going to say, you know what, I'll give up a couple shows. It's not a big deal giving up a couple shows if I have to, but I've always wanted to do it. And you remember Tony Franklin?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, one of the things he did when he was sort of in coaching purgatory, and I'm glad he's back, his problem is, and this is an awful thing to say, he's probably the most honest coach I've ever talked to. And he has gotten in people's, because he's so honest, it's cost him. But as he said, I sleep well. Now, I've never met anybody like him, Bob. I've known him since he was coaching school and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things he did when he was sort of in that coaching purgatory, which says one of the greatest things he did in his life, the Army has, and I'm trying to remember what it's called, you have to be 150 pounds. It's like a 150-pound league, and he was their head coach. And he said, I'm telling you, living on that campus and the beauty, he said, as a coach, there are no problems. These guys, yes, sir, no, sir. He said it was one of the greatest years of his life. And he said, Cutler, I'm telling you, you got to come up and see this place. He said, just driving around in the fall, he said, it's absolutely magnificent. And the feeling of pride you get from being there. So that's really on my bucket list, and I haven't done it. And so you've made me write it down again.
You need to do it. It is one of the most, Lindsey Nelson, who retired back here in Knoxville when he got done doing the Mets and then the Giants. The Giants was his last team. When he retired, he moved back up here, lived on Cherokee Bluff overlooking the campus. And he would come over to Channel 10 and do what he called Lindsay at Large, which were 3-minute vignettes. And can you imagine being a 26, 27-year-old sports director, and you walk in your office in the afternoon and Lindsey Nelson is sitting in your office reading the newspaper? It was incredible.
I can't.
And
grew up watching and listening to him, and I loved him. And
it's great. And so anyway, he told me that he was General Westmoreland's press secretary during the war and everything. And so he always told me, if there was one football game to go to in a year, go to Army Navy. You'll never forget it. And so we went, and of course I was with Chet, and so he's Navy royalty. It's like walking around the Tennessee campus with Peyton Manning when you're walking around with Chet. I mean, everybody knows him. And so they had a gala the night before at the Baltimore Convention Center. So they had Army on one side, Navy on the other, had a red carpet down the middle. They had both bands, both cheerleaders come in, do their deal. And then both the superintendent, I guess the commandant from West Point, got up, gave their speeches. They had little videos made and just a big pep talk for the game. And then afterwards they had a band that's playing like, Earth, Wind and Fire type music, real kind of pop stuff. And everybody got up and was dancing. I mean, the Army Navy guys out there, talking to each other, and I'm thinking, if they did this type deal before a Tennessee Alabama game, there'd be chandeliers torn and tables broken and chairs smashed, and you couldn't do that. But it's amazing. The feeling is during the game. Now they're going to compete, but when the game is over, they're on the same team. They're defending our country. And when you sit there at the stadium, that's like 3 hours before the game, and the midshipmen march in, they're 4,000 strong, and they line up on the field. They march off, and then the cadets march out 4,000 strong. And you're thinking, these are some of the most special young people in our nation. And tomorrow they would stand on the wall to defend us. And it was just inspiring. And they have a thing that I didn't know anything about. It's called the jailbreak, and they're 10 midshipmen and they're 10 cadets, and they swap schools for a semester. So the Navy midshipmen go to West Point and do a semester there of schooling. And so at halftime of the game, they have what they call the prisoner escape, and they allow them to go back to their regular schools. And when they ran back up in the student section there, people went crazy. But there's so much tradition, the flyovers. I thought it was in Baltimore when some of those helicopters flew over the stadium. I thought they're going to take the goalpost down. That's how low they were, and the whole stadium was shaking. But it's inspiring. And it makes you proud to be an American. President Trump was there, and he got great ovations and cheers. And it was just a very, very. It was a day that made you be proud to be American. So you go to an Army Navy game. Anybody, if you can get a ticket, this go, you'll appreciate it.
We're listening to the retired great voice of the University of Tennessee, Bob Kesling. I know I've gone long. Can I steal you for about another 3 minutes just talking about Tennessee and Kentucky?
Sure.
Okay. So I have this thing that this is one you're going to think I'm out of my mind, but it's probably not the first time you've thought that. I love Ament. I don't like him. I love him. I mean, when he gets just a little more strength, he's never going to be thick. He doesn't need to be thick. His hands and his shot, and he's got a feel, and he's got that sense of timing. I mean, I see him as potentially a superstar in the NBA. Okay, and since Kentucky beat Tennessee, he's averaging like 24 points a game. It doesn't surprise me. Okay, here we go. Bob Kesling. I'm not saying he's Kevin Durant. I'm not saying that. I saw Kevin Durant a couple times when he was at Texas. And I don't know how far they are from each other. As Durant's game, matured and stuff like that, Durant will probably be playing when he's 45, if anybody could, because he's unbelievable. But he's kind of like Durant in the things he can do for his size. He's like a 6'10" 2 guard, actually. Yeah. When you I'm not saying he's Kevin Durant, and you can say, well, they're both tall, but yeah, and they both have unbelievable touches. I don't like his game. I love his game.
Yeah. I talked to Coach Barnes before the season started, and I said, well, where do you figure on playing Ament? He said he can play all 5 positions. He can bring the ball up. He can shoot it. He can post up. He can do anything you want to. I think the Kentucky game, the loss here, really was a good thing for Tennessee, because usually Rick Barnes' teams don't lose games like that in the second half. Once he gets that vice on you, usually closes things out. But I think at that time, the Tennessee team was really trying to figure out its identity. What was Gillespie really going to do? How much did he have to score? And where was Ament going to fit in? Well, that thing kind of locked everybody in, because I think it shocked them. I think it stunned them when Kentucky came back and won that game. It was also good for Kentucky, because I think they needed a confidence boost at that time to try and get those guys to figure out where they are. But Ament is a guy that he's 6'10", maybe 6'11", and from the mid-range, who are you going to put on him? I mean, who's going to stop him? I mean, he's got an unstoppable 15-foot jump shot.
Yep.
And you can't put a 6'10", power forward on him, because he'll just drive around him. And if you back off him, he's going to shoot a 3 right in your face. So he is a very tough. It's almost a guy you're going to have to double team and then take your chances with Gillespie and who else can score from Tennessee. But that's Tennessee's issue right now. They got two reliable scorers. Who else is going to step up when Arkansas took both Ament and Gillespie out of the game? So did Kentucky for in the second half, especially. They just didn't get many touches because they were being face guarded. Who else from Tennessee is going to step up and beat you? And they've got great depth inside, but they don't have any great scorers down low. They don't really have a true two guard, and I think Gillespie is a two guard, but he's got to play point because they don't have a point guard. So there are a lot of things about this Tennessee team that they were trying to paste together, and I think they've got a better feel now for the roles on these teams. It's still a pretty young team. He's playing. Well, one thing about Barnes, usually he only wants to play 8 guys. Well, this year he's playing 10 and 11 because he's not really sure what he's going to get from different guys each night. So it's a much different looking Tennessee team. And I think they're dangerous. And I think with Ament and Gillespie, that if those guys get it going, they can put up a lot of points. So it's really interesting to see how this rematch with Kentucky is going to play out because, I think Kentucky that Tennessee game seemed to light a fire under him a little bit.
It's he shoots a lot, but if it was me, aren't for me, really kind of silly way of putting it. I would tell him, take all the shots you want.
Sure.
Because there aren't a lot of guys that can score, but you got nice toughness underneath. You got really nice athletes underneath. I would say, you know what? If it's good shots and you take 30 shots, and I'd say it in front of the team, I'm good with it. So he feels comfortable with that. Because if he can have some games where he's already top 3-0, he can have some games where he can have 35 and 37 points, which I think he's capable of.
Yes.
Need him to do that. If he does that, I think Tennessee hits another level, but that's me.
Well, I think that Coach Barnes will have no problems with Ament taking shots as long as you said they're good shots. And I really haven't seen him, unless the shot clock's rolling down, I haven't really seen him take many bad shots. And again, the thing is, if you come out on him, he will drive around you and get to the basket. And now he's starting to finish. He didn't finish shots early in the season because he was getting bumped around and pushed. And I think he's used to the contact now, and he's finishing a lot better around the basket. And I think he's a handful. And everybody's projecting him as being a top 10, top 15 pick in the draft, and I can see that. And he's such a good young man too. He comes from a great family. I have a golf tournament up in Greenville for the Boys and Girls Club every year, and he came to the tournament. He and a bunch of Jacoby Gillespie grew up in that Boys and Girls Club up in Greenville, so he brought a bunch of the players, Estrella, a bunch of them, to play in the tournament. And I looked at Amen. I said, "Are you a golfer?" And because I didn't really know. And oh yeah, he takes out that driver, crushed it. And it was amazing. Just so that tells you what a good athlete the guy is, hand-eye coordination. But they say he's not quite a scratch golfer, but he shoots, I'm thinking, the 80s. So he's a really good athlete. And that's the other thing about it. He seems to be a very, very good young man.
Which is lovely. And, I've heard the thing, not like you, that, he's not so good finishing inside. I'm going, okay, give him 2 years when he's lifted weights. He'll be just
Sure.
right. You're going to say all of a sudden, my gosh, you can't stop him anywhere. Last one for you. This makes no sense, and I get it. So Yelovich has done a really nice job. He's finally getting used to America and the culture and a different kind of basketball. And I said, in August, you're going to have to give him a lot of time. People at times don't realize if you're from Serbia, Croatia, it's a whole different society, food, this and that. And he struggled. He struggled with a ton of stuff. And you can see his body language. He's becoming so much better. But he can't guard Ament because he's got no quickness left or right. It seems to me with Ament, he's such a freak, and I mean freak nicely. Owe might be the best person to guard him, even though he's given up a half a foot. But if he gets in foul trouble, Kentucky's screwed. But I'd like to see Owe because he can get he can't stop if he puts his hands up with a shot, but he can get in his body. My fear would be if I'm Kentucky, he gets 3 fouls and Kentucky's just screwed because Owe recently has been unbelievable. How do you stop him? I have no clue.
Well, I think you do your work before he gets the ball. Face guard him and make sure he doesn't get it. But the problem is you got to face guard Gillespie and Ament, and that's been a problem. The teams, Arkansas did it and they beat Tennessee, but a lot of teams don't have the athletes to do that. Kentucky probably does, but again, those matchups. But you can't let Gillespie just stand out there. You can't double team Ament and let Gillespie have open looks because he'll kill you. I mean, he's a tremendous shooter, and so they present some matchup problems. So it'll be interesting to see. And I don't think you can zone them because I think Ament and Gillespie will shoot over the top of the zone. So right now, Tennessee's rolling pretty good, and they do present a lot of matchup problems for opposing teams. That's what makes the game tomorrow really interesting to see how Kentucky decides to defend those guys and how Tennessee defends Kentucky too, because they can't allow Ament and Gillespie to get in foul trouble because there goes the offense. So interesting matchup.
It usually is with Kentucky and Tennessee. We went super long. God bless you, Bob. You have unbelievable stories. I would imagine you probably have turned some down, but you should be doing after dinner banquet speaking. You have, your stories that you have in your life and the broadcasting. And I really didn't know. I assume because we grew up in the same era, different places, but the same era, we had some similarities. We had a lot more than I thought.
Yeah.
The different things that happened to us and what affected us. Although my one-person story and your one-person story is a little different, but that's okay. Hey, God, you look good. You sound great. Keep your day job of Uber driving. That's one of the great blessings in the world. My respect for you has always been off the charts. Hopefully we can visit down the road, but I could listen to your stories all day. Bob, thank you so much.
Alan, always good to see you. Thanks for your friendship. Take care. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too. Jimmy, that was spectacular. I mean, that was just absolutely spectacular. The stories that Bob has.
There's an unlimited amount.
Yeah. And we went way too long. And I shouldn't have kept him this long, but I think he's okay with it. It's interesting before we go to a break. He had stayed away from doing these things. And his reason was, Keith is a great announcer. I mean, you follow a great announcer with a great announcer. And guess what? He followed a great announcer. John Ward was the Kaywood Lefford of Tennessee. He had a towel. You'd have liked it, Jimmy. He had a towel around his neck. It was like he was playing the game. And he had that, really, Kaywood had this beautiful, deep voice. Well, he had his own beautiful, deep voice. Oh, I can't think of the guy's name at Georgia. I can picture his face. He had this gravelly, deep voice. There were so many great play-by-play men. I'm not saying they're not good now, but there were so many great play-by-play men back when I started in the 80s that were veterans. Jack Crystal, Mississippi State, the stories he had. Did it, 40, 50 years, whatever it was? These guys had these jobs forever, and they were special, and they were classy, and they had so many good stories. And Bob had a great career. It's amazing. And it's not easy knowing when you say to yourself, it's time. Because he could have continued doing it. Nobody said, hey, it's time. Nobody did that to him. That wasn't part of it. I'll tell you what could be a really good thing, part of it for you. Ramon Carriega, Blue Lotus Health, 859-533-0914. 859-533-0914. Acupuncture, now also providing a licensed massage therapist, whether it's pain, low back, neck, shoulder, low energy, confusion, headache, dizziness, seizure, sciatica, foot pain, hand pain. There's a whole list of things that Ramon can help you with. On Versailles Road, he's a really smart man. He's become a dear friend. I'm lucky to have found him. And if you're interested in your health, it's a thing that I recommend highly, highly. Blue Lotus Health, 859-533-0914. Bob Kessling, thank you so much. And my arch nemesis, Sean Woods, at 1:30. Alan Cutler, 1300 AM, 92.5 FM.
No Filter Radio with Alan Cutler, brought to you by Quantrell Auto Group. QuantrellForLife.com.
Hi, this is Alan Cutler. Have a no filter comment? Hit the text line, 859-381-1313. 859-381-1313. Hi, this is Alan Cutler, and I've spent years on these roads, and safety isn't a slogan to me, it's real life. That's one reason I trust Volvo. Quantrell Volvo has been part of this community for years. Brentley and Mark are friends of mine, and they run the dealership the right way with care, integrity, and real respect for the people they serve. If safety, smart design, and peace of mind matter to you, start your search at Quantrell Volvo. We have the XC60, the hybrid. We love it. Best car we've had in 43 years, and it is really smooth. And we're saving money on the gas. Right now, get financing as low as 0.99% APR for 36 months on most 2026 models. Visit QuantroVolvo.com. See dealer for details.
Hey, I'm Dale Wise. I've just recently retired. I know that the electronics, if you don't keep up with it, it can get away from you and get real confusing. Republic Bank's app, I use their app, and it is so easy to use. I log in with my fingerprint, so it's super easy. I don't have to remember 50 million different passwords and all that stuff. And it lays it out just real nice.
That's Dale's story. Now let's get to work on yours. Republic Bank. Time to thrive. Member FDIC. Data rates may apply.
Ooh, baby, it's cold outside.
Uncle Rick, warm yourself up with a hot coffee or cappuccino at Clark's Pump and Shop.
Kappa what?
Cappuccino. And while you're there, be sure to pick up some of our in-store specials. We have assorted Hershey, Reese, Kit Kat, and Payday standard sized candy bars, 2 for $3, and Nature Valley granola bars, 2 for $2.
I feel warmer already. Clark's Pump and Shop. Return, refresh, refuel.
W223CV Lexington.
ESPN Sports Radio 1300 and 92.5. WLXG Lexington, an LM Communications broadcasting station. The only no-filter sports show in Kentucky. It's the Alan Cutler Show with award-winning TV sportscaster Alan Cutler.
I don't know. Ever since they've been doing that, they think they're really tough. They like to look down on us guards because we don't bring up boxing gloves to practice, and so they've been shaming us a little bit for saying they're a lot tougher than us. But it's been nice because they've been hitting people, and it's been I think they've been great. The last 8 games, our bigs have been tremendous.
So they telling Otega to his face they're a lot tougher than him?
Probably. Yeah.
Funny question by Mark Story. So we talked about boxing, how the bigs are, doing a little boxing with the gloves on, and it's toughing them up. And they've told Yelovich, you have to hit somebody right away in the game, and he's doing it, and it's helping, and they've become more physical. And what you're seeing is a metamorphosis, a change in a team, which happens to tons of teams. One of the fair examples that I use, if you look at St. John's now, and I do, versus when they lost to Kentucky, they're kind of like a totally different team. They really are, which is a credit to their players in Patino. Well, if you look at Kentucky, they're kind of like a totally different team. And they are. Now, the question is, will it be good enough? I don't know. When Tennessee lost to Kentucky the first time down in Rocky Top, I kind of thought they choked. And I don't mean that in a disparaging way, as some people say, I can't stand Tennessee and all that stuff. That's got nothing to do with me at all. Everybody chokes. It happens all the time. And I remember what Ron Slay put out. Ron Slay is a wonderful broadcaster. And I remember, and he was really controversial. Because he was so Tennessee and so strong and vivacious and stuff like that. I remember going on TV one time and said, when people say, I don't like Ron Slay, and I would say, if he played for Kentucky, you would love him. And he's a hell of a broadcaster. And so he saved the tweet, Jimmy, from when Kentucky came back to beat Tennessee. That's a horrific Caps loss for Tennessee. Up by 17, and UK walked you down in your house and talked to you about it on the way back. This is a test of Caps will for this volunteer team. If that bell isn't answered, this will be a long, long season of disappointments. And for about 7 minutes on, Kentucky flipped the switch. And Chandler, who has just been unbelievably clutch, the most clutch player on the team, had that steal, if I remember, didn't he? Yeah, and he said he heard them talking about it, and he read it. And then Owe made the layup. And the defense down the stretch was huge. And I do remember this. 1 offensive rebound in the first half for Kentucky. That sucks so bad it's not even funny. And 13 in the second half. 13. Plus, Kentucky had only 1 turnover in the second half. And Aberdeen had 18 points in the second half. It was what a turnaround. And the confidence that these kids now have. I mentioned yesterday that it was great that Rob Dillingham was dumped or traded, whatever you want to call it, to Chicago, because he was so far down the bench at Minnesota, he was never going to get a chance. He just wasn't. And I'm fascinated to see what kind of chance. No, he's not going to walk in and start with Chicago or something like that. But I have to believe. So the coach and general manager in Chicago, remember Billy Donovan there, they're on the same page. They're really, really have a tight relationship. And I suspect that Dillingham is going to get a chance in Chicago. It might not be a big opportunity right away, but I suspect he's going to get a chance. And I get he's got defensive liabilities with his size. I think he can play. I just do, and I could be wrong, and I'm not saying he can play at Kentucky because he can score off anybody. He really can. And I believe he can score off guys in China, guys in America, guys in Cleveland, guys in Lexington. I do, if he has his confidence back in the shake and bake. And the other guy was kind of an afterthought. And his numbers when he's played have always been really good. Isaiah Jackson. And he had an up and down career with the Pacers. And remember, he was hurt last year, yet the Pacers wanted to keep him because they liked him. They could have easily let him go. Been an easy thing to do. But they signed him to keep him. And the other day, he played a nice game off the bench. Well, he's part of their big trade. They got Zubac from the Clippers, and that really surprised me. They were able to get him. Really surprised that the Clippers gave him up. He's still young. He's a tough center, really, really, really good. But Pacers gave up a lot. They gave around 2 first-round picks and a second pick, plus Isaiah Jackson. But the big guy in the trade wasn't Isaiah. It was Benedict Mathurin, who had some playoff games last year that were crazy. I mean, he could be a huge star. And I got to tell you, I know the Pacers are having an awful year and they need help in center. I think the Pacers gave up way too much. But that's me. They don't ask me. I play friendly general manager. The other thing, did you see this thing with LeBron, Jimmy, and what he was wearing? Unbelievable. Hat tip to Cameron Drummond. I saw he had it first as Cameron put out rocking Kentucky basketball themed shoes. It's the Nike LeBron 23 PE shoes. I don't know what the heck that means, but that's what Cameron says it is. And the Kentucky blue-coated shoes featured the white interlocking UK logo on the back heel. LeBron. Interesting. Very interesting. One other quick NBA note, and I'm not surprised about this for 2 reasons. And I kind of hinted at the possibility only once. It was a short little thing. I said that Amari Williams had a chance of getting a contract with the Celtics for 2 reasons. One, he better be good enough to be worthy of getting a contract. Obviously, Celtics are really interesting about their contract. But the first reason, he never got a contract if the first thing didn't happen. The Celtics perhaps, and I don't know the full money value, the Celtics perhaps have done a better job than anybody in the NBA in the past, I don't know, 6-8 months, whatever it is, either not renewing contracts or trading guys away to get under the cap. Change of ownership, they have a different philosophy, and somehow Stevens, the general manager, has done a spectacular job because a lot of people thought they would fall by the wayside with all the extra players that they didn't sign and those kinds of things, and I never believed it. And Stevens has picked up some guys on the cheap that have turned out to be really good for their roles. If there's 3 better general managers, you put him, OKC, and a couple other places, top 5, absolutely no question about it. So because of that, now Amari is getting a little bit of a chance. And so what you do is, Jimmy, I don't know what the contract is. I would bet it's minimum, but he got a 2-year NBA deal. So instead of the split contract, he got a 2-year deal, and maybe it's the minimum plus 100,000 or something like that. But it's low. It's not any big deal whatsoever. But if you're Amari Williams and you're on a 2-way contract, you jump at that opportunity. I don't know how much is guaranteed. I looked for it. A couple stories I saw, maybe it's too early or they didn't know, people who follow the Celtics. That's not the point. The point is he got a 2-year NBA deal. So what they're saying, this is your 2-year tryout. That's not unusual. And Amari has a chance. He's got a chance. Even though they brought in another center, he might end up spending a lot of time down in the G League, but he's got a chance. Is that what it was, Jimmy? Jimmy just looked it up. 2 years, $2.7 million.
Yeah, and he's got, I believe, 490,000 of that is guaranteed.
Okay. And you know what? Based upon these kinds of deals, it's a fair deal. On his 2-way contract, he didn't have 490 guaranteed. He didn't have 190 guaranteed. I think in most of those cases, the G League part after a certain point is guaranteed or they write that in, which is not $100,000. So good for Amari. Good for Amari. They like him. There's no question they like him. They see his potential. It's a wonderful opportunity for him. It really is. And he's unique. And I have to believe that his shooting and his touch around the rim can get better. I've always been baffled, and I've said this before. I can't remember a guy who started for Kentucky or started at a place like Kentucky that was so close to the basket. And Jimmy, you remember me saying this, he wouldn't look at the basket at times when he shot. It was a strange habit. And I always thought it was odd that at Drexel, he didn't have a higher average. I mean, how many people did he look in the eye when he played at Drexel? Right. And he's got all his coordination. I always thought that was odd. And I couldn't figure it out till I saw him play a couple times. And I waited for a couple games to see whether it's an accident or was it a trend. And there were times, if you remember, or if you're new to the show, he wouldn't look at the basket. Not always, but how do you do that? I don't know. I don't know if it's something he just grew up with in England or something like that, but it's a habit that can be changed. I would be shocked, Jimmy, beyond belief, because most of these teams have wonderful coaches in the G League that we don't know anything about. They're really good basketball people, but they're kind of no names trying to move their way up, and most of them are very good teachers. And so I'm curious to see when I get to see him play, and I don't watch the Celtics a lot, but I catch him when I can, and he plays so little anyway, if that's a habit that has changed. Pull this off internet. Perry Stevenson, I need to try to get on the show. I think somebody thought he was saying this about Tennessee, which might be apropos. It was about Arkansas. Jimmy, did you see this? This is great. Perry Stevenson on Arkansas. You're a state, period. Next word, sucks, period. You're a school, period. Sucks, period. Your colors, period. Sucks, period. You're a mascot, period. Sucks, period. And here's the last line. They're screwing us in broad daylight for everyone to see. You know, when you play basketball for Kentucky and you talk to these kids about, by the way, Perry Stevenson was wonderful to talk to. He was a little off the wall, which I like, and wasn't shy, wasn't afraid to say stuff. But this is obviously further out in left field than he would have been in front of a TV camera, because if you say this kind of thing during an interview process, the SID or the coach is going to end up talking to you. I mean, there's certain leeway that you have, right? He never did anything like this. And he was just a very interesting guy. And he's coaching now. What do you think about that? Scale of 1 to 10, when's the last time you heard a player say that?
It's been a while since anything like that, but I mean, it's hard to argue with any of those points. The color thing, I'm a fan of the color red, so I can't say that. But everything else, I mean, I completely agree. I mean, it's the best thing about Arkansas. I can't think of anything.
Mike Petraglia called Tracks, did our show one time. He's a really good reporter. He's in Cincinnati. Put this thing up about Kenny Anderson not being in the Hall of Fame, and there's too many people, he says, that don't know football and don't know what they're watching. I do think there are too many people who vote for the Hall of Fame who don't know what the hell they're doing. Kenny, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but it's pretty obvious. Kenny Anderson should have been in the Hall of Fame as obvious as the nose on my face and your face, Jimmy. And you look at his records and stuff like that. So what I've said for years is, and I'm not taking this back, if he played in New York, he'd be in the Hall of Fame. It was Cincinnati. Had the Bengals won against San Francisco, he'd be in the Hall of Fame. He would. Look at what he did passing-wise the 3-4 years around that, and how many times he led the league in completions and all that kind of stuff. So this guy shouted back at me, and I'm not mad. It was kind of funny. He said, I am wrong, because I said, New York Giants. Hey, because you got to win the Super Bowl, all that kind of stuff. He said if he played for Pittsburgh, he'd be in. And his last words, I thought was kind of cute. So if the guy's listening, I'm not calling him out. I don't care. He used caps like I use. The only thing he put in caps in the whole thing, Jimmy, he went, period. Like, you're wrong and I'm right. Well, first of all, he's entitled to his opinion. I don't care. And second of all, Kenny Anderson belongs in the Hall of Fame. He just does. He just does. We got to go to Sean Woods really quick. Did you agree with, because I know you're an NFL guy, with Stafford getting the MVP? And let me throw one thing in there. He had a great year, and he's had a great career. There's no question about it. But Jeff Saturday, who I think is spectacular. By the way, if you like sports, and it sounds funny me saying this way, we're mostly Kentucky, but we talk sports. If you like sports, the morning show on ESPN is really good. I mean, it's really good. I think it's better than Mike and the Mad Dog. And they had their heyday. They had a spectacular career. So I'm not ripping him, but Greeny doesn't have strong takes. He's done a wonderful job being with soft takes, and the guy's had a spectacular career. I'm not ripping him. I'm saying this show is better if you like sports and you want hard, honest opinions. Jeff Saturday is one of the best. And his logic off the top of his head, why the young guy in New England should have gotten it, it was spectacular. And he said there are too many people that do the voting in the Hall of Fame that just takes the touchdowns versus interceptions and don't look into it and why. And he just went off on stats and numbers and comparisons that it should have been made. But it's kind of like, okay, the media's been pushing for Stafford, right? He's been around a long time. He's a great guy. He has a great family. His wife has battled back from cancer. He's the All-American kid, right? And what he's doing at this point in his career, it's really unbelievable. And it's kind of like, okay, May, guess what? You're going to get your turn, but you're going to wait. And I can't stand that stuff. And by the way, good for Stafford. I thought May had a better year. What say you, Jimmy?
This is one of those, and I feel it is a cop-out answer, but at the same time, I mean, look how close the voting was. Like, I think it would have been fine either way. I personally would have leaned Stafford. Part of it being that the easier schedule for May, but then you also go into they were looking at common opponents they had, but even you can't even do common opponents because as we saw in college basketball, we talked about earlier, the St. John's team that lost to Kentucky is not the same team they are now. So the common opponents, even in the NFL, you can't really compare those. I would have gone Stafford, but if May won, honestly, it's splitting hairs. One day I'd go May, and then I'd hear another argument. Maybe Stafford. But
okay,
at the end, I lean Stafford. But I mean, it's the closest race since 2003 when McNair and Peyton Manning were co-MVPs.
Yeah, I mean, 24-23 first place votes. The voting itself overall was ridiculously close. My summation is one thing in particular. After all that, you put those wide receivers that Stafford has on New England and make an unbelievably better year. I'm not ripping the New England wideouts, but they are a smidgen in comparison. Now, Diggs might have a great game, but Rams receivers are ridiculous. Okay, Sean Wood's coming up next. Terry Page. She texted me this morning, so I said, why not? 859-373-0578. This is from her text. Hey, Alan, what do you think of this? Your listeners get $10 off their first visit if they use the code Cutler when booking in February. You think anybody can remember that, Jimmy? Use the word Cutler?
I think that's an easy code.
Okay. It's not my idea. It's hers. And I hope you go see her because I got to tell you, without getting specific, wasn't feeling well yesterday at all. It's too long and it's too personal, whatever. And when I left yesterday, I felt like a totally different human being. Totally different. It's crazy, actually. She is spectacular. She said, I shouldn't say this, but she said, one of these days I might have to retire because she has some problem with her hands. I said, you can't retire. You can't retire. I need your help so much. That's how much I speak of her. So this month in February, text or call. And when you do it, say Cutler and $10 off your first visit. Terry Page, a great licensed massage therapist, 859-373-0578. The man who loves me, Sean Woods, coming up next. Alan Cutler, 1300 AM, 92.5 FM.
No Filter Radio with
Republic Bank helps their customers go from living to thriving. Learn more at republicbank.com. Member FDIC.
Hi, this is Alan Cutler, and I've spent years on these roads, and safety isn't a slogan to me, it's real life. That's one reason I trust Volvo. Quantrill Volvo has been part of this community for years. Brentley and Mark are friends of mine, and they run the dealership the right way with care, integrity, and real respect for the people they serve. If safety, smart design, and peace of mind matter to you, start your search at Quantrell Volvo. We have the XC60, the hybrid. We love it. Best car we've had in 43 years, and it is really smooth, and we're saving money on the gas. Right now, get financing as low as 0.99% APR for 36 months on most 2026 models. Visit QuantrellVolvo.com. See dealer for details.
Ooh, baby, it's cold outside.
Uncle Rick, warm yourself up with a hot coffee or cappuccino at Clark's Pub and Shop.
Kappa what?
Cappuccino. And while you're there, be sure to pick up some of our in-store specials. We have assorted Hershey, Reese, Kit Kat, and Payday standard sized candy bars, 2 for $3, and Nature Valley granola bars, 2 for $2.
I feel warmer already. Clark's Pump and Shop. Return, refresh, refuel.
Back to No Filter Radio with Alan Cutler. Podcasts on Apple, Spotify, and Google, Monday through Friday.
Welcome back. Alan Cutler, 1300 AM, 92.5 FM. In about 10 seconds, I'm going to introduce Sean. Jimmy, I just saw this. So the Detroit Tigers are all in. In 2021, their salary was $81 million for the entire team. In 2026, they have maybe the top two pitchers on one team in all of baseball with signing Framber. Struble and Framber, their two salaries this year. I'm not talking about, contracts down the road. This year, $70.33 million. Unbelievable. Sean Woods, how are you?
I'm good, Bubs. How you doing, man?
Doing great. So I now dub you the man who says he loves me.
I saw that on Twitter.
Do you have a
hey?
Do you have a
at least someone does. You know what I'm saying? Why not be me?
Absolutely. Well, you started it.
Maybe there's more out there. They're just afraid to tell you.
No, others have said it on the show, but nobody's done it like you. Because Sean, a lot of things in life. One of the greatest guards in the history of Kentucky, who's up there in the rafters of Rupp where he deserves. Nobody does it like you, Sean.
Hey, I appreciate it, Bubs. I appreciate it.
All right, I got one for you. Ready?
Yep.
Okay, now you're going to overreact when I say something because I know how you are. I am not saying he's Kevin Durant. I'm not. I don't know if you ever saw Kevin Durant in Texas. I saw a couple games. It's not like I saw a ton.
Oh, yeah. I saw Kevin Durant in Texas.
You know him too, don't you?
Yeah, I know him okay.
Okay. That's what I thought. They're not best friends, but you know him. Okay. I look at Amen, and he's 6'10", or Kessling said he thinks he's taller, which is fine. But to me, he's a two guard. And to me, he's not saying he's going to be Durant for his career. He's the closest thing to Durant. He's a 6'10" guard who can shoot from anywhere. He's the closest thing, and he's unbelievable shot, unbelievable hand. It's the closest thing Durant I've ever seen in college. Yes or no?
Yeah, can I go one step further? Maybe he reminds me of Tracy McGrady too.
Well, okay, hang on a second now. I know what you're doing. But Tracy McGrady was stronger physically, and I don't think he'll ever get that.
When Tracy McGrady first came out of high school, Tracy McGrady's about that size.
Yeah, he was, but he got thick. And okay, what I'm trying to say, I don't see his body becoming that thick. Maybe it will. No, I have seen pictures of McGrady. He was thin, but he didn't get thick. But let's put it this way: he became more like a man really quick.
He did. He sure did, because you mature more when you go from high school to the NBA, more so than you go from high school to college. Just because in college you got to go to class this, and in high school you're working on your body 24 hours a day. And here's the deal too: Kevin Durant's body really never changed until he got in his 30s. So I think this kid is thicker than Kevin Durant when coming out of high school. I think he's more Tracy McGrady-ish. And to be honest with you, I think his game is more Tracy McGrady-ish than Kevin Durant because he can put the ball between his legs and get by you, whereas Kevin Durant was a 1, 2, 3 dribble at best pull-up type of guy and a marksman from the three-pointer.
All right, Sean. Hold your ears. That's a very good analogy. But I'm sticking with my Durant thing. By the way, how many years did hang on. I know your ego's bursting now. How many years did McGrady play in college?
How many what now?
How many years did he play in college?
Tracy McGrady never played in college.
Oh, thank you. I set you up. So what did I say? You owe me an apology. What did I say?
You said he reminds you of Kevin Durant when he was in college. Okay, I'm sorry, Bubby. By saying that, you are correct. I can go with that analogy. And that comparison. I can go with that with you.
Now, why is it you don't stutter except for one thing? When you're apologizing to me and saying I'm all right, you always stutter. Why do I bring out the worst in you?
Because I bring out the worst in you.
We both have this unique talent, don't we?
That's why we buds, man.
Okay, to this TEAM. I think what we're seeing is remarkable. I'm not saying they're going to the Final Four. I wouldn't have any idea. I don't, because I can't figure these kids out. And I'm not saying win a national championship, but they've come a long way. And if they now understand, and they're showing us they do, and they're going to have a clunker. Everybody's going to have a clunker. You'd hope it's not a clunker, in the month of March. But if they've really figured out 40 minutes and they've really figured out their roles, as that old line is, perhaps the best is yet to come.
I have to take a step back, and I think we all do, okay? And not just talk about the team. Let's finally give Mark Pope some kudos. And I say that because he is an intelligent guy, and for what he's doing his best to try to figure this thing out. And to his credit, he's bouncing and had to bounce and has to continue to bounce everything in his basketball knowledge brain off the wall to see what sticks. And I think the main thing that stuck was he had to change. And by me saying that, you can't coach. And I know you say, times have changed and these kids don't want to be coached hard and so on and so forth. Man, let me tell you something. You still got to coach guys hard. And you still got to put major expectations on them. And practice has got to be the toughest thing of their lives throughout every single day. And now he is doing that. I'm hearing that he's throwing F-bombs out, which that's like music to my ears, especially at that level. Hey, hi, hoorah, that is going out because it's strictly business now. And I think these guys are used to that type of coaching. I think they're responding to it more than him being his old self and just expecting guys to play the right way, play as hard as they should play, and not play as hard as they have to play, and demand things from these guys, and not expect things from these guys. So I think him changing in that perspective goes a long way with the success that this team is having right now.
I agree, and I applaud him. And I bet it wasn't easy. And I bet they had some heart-to-heart coaching conversations among his staff and stuff like that. But whatever's going on, it's working. And the example I've used now 4 or 5 times, when Kentucky beat St. John's, the St. John's team today is totally different. Patino and those kids have improved so much. It's kind of remarkable. Well, guess what? The Kentucky team that beat St. John's, they've improved now tremendously, and it's remarkable. I think, and that's what coaching is supposed to do. With kids buying in, you're figuring your team out. It takes longer to figure sometimes your team out because there's so many new pieces that they have to figure out quickly. And so there's a lot of teams that have gotten a lot better. Well, when a team gets a lot better from November or December to now, you got to give the players and the coach credit.
No doubt about it. You give the credit, but here's the deal too. The credit's going to do what they're allowed to do. The players are going to do what they're allowed to do and get away with. And, they still got to be led. And he's leading them now. He's leading them in the way that not only is he leading them, he's demanding them to follow his lead. instead of asking them and expecting them to follow the lead of what the expectations are. You know the expectations, Mark. They don't. You've worn that uniform before, and you know what people are expecting. They don't. So you got to make sure that they get it. And whether you got to beat it into their mind and their soul and drill it into their mind and their soul, you have to do what you have to do. And for what I understand, that's what's happening in practice right now. It's not about kumbaya anymore. It's about we got a job to do. These people are expecting this, and this is the tradition of Kentucky. And Kentucky has been Kentucky because of being viciously led by big-time coaches that don't allow you to do your own thing. They expect you to do what they need you to do, and they demand you to do that, and that's the reason why Kentucky basketball is Kentucky basketball.
Let me try it this way, Sean. See if you think this is part of it. And by the way, I'd love to know the moment that Mark decided to change. If he did it on his own, maybe, or you talk to other coaches, and maybe Pitino said, "Hey, this is not kumbaya." But let me throw it to you this way, and I don't say this with any meanness in case somebody wants to interpolate it. I said it the wrong way. That way, I like saying that word the way I like to say that word. Sorry, Sean. I'm never going to be an English teacher. It's like athletes often need, and again, I'm not talking down to athletes. I'm not talking down to coaches. And you know me well enough, Sean. You know I mean this from my heart. It's like he's bringing back a little bit of a fear factor. Oh, I better listen. Oh, I better pay attention. Oh, I can't lollygag through practice. Oh, we got to start going the first 4 minutes. Oh, he's not kidding around. Oh, guess what? This is kind of good for me. It kind of wakes up the athlete because you have this long season with all these practices and all these games, and it can get mundane, as you know. Come on, you lived it on both sides of the fence as a player and then now as a coach. And I think what you're saying, it's not like they're scared of him. I don't mean that. It has nothing to do with that, but there's a little edge, a little fear, which can be very healthy. One, do you see where I'm coming from? And two, it's okay for you to say you agree 100%.
I agree 100%. I don't know no other way, Alan. I don't. I still coach like that, and I'm coaching high school. There's no other way. There is no other way. It's either the coach's way or no way. And like Bob Knight used to always say, that bench is the best motivator going. Not only that, there's consequences got to be in practice, too, when you ain't getting it done. That line can make you wonder, too. And I'm talking about that line about touching one line, coming back, touching another line, coming back. That line makes that happen, too. There's got to be some consequences for poor play and doing it your way. So, yes, there's no other way. I don't see it. And the best coaches that are still in the game are still that way. There's no other way, Alan. It's like that in the military. It's like that in college athletics, because college athletics is war. Athletics is war. It's high competition, and it's all about the survival of the fittest. And you want your team to go through the most and be the most uncomfortable. And guess what else? You got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. In order to get to places, you got to, you got to do things you've never done to get to places you've never been. That's part of coaching. That's part of athletics. That's part of life for the most part, too.
Kumbaya still doesn't work, and you're saying all these old-time coaches that are still around. I'd love to be in an Izzo practice, just watch how his toughness is.
You start sweating once you get into the building.
And that's okay.
Because it's so hot in there. You know how Coach Pitino does it.
Yeah.
Okay. You know what my man over at Houston does. He tells it and tells you direct every day. Those three right there, plus the ultimate Lucifer, is Danny Hurley over there at Connecticut.
You call Lucifer?
They used to call Coach Pitino the Exorcist. Danny Hurley is the new Exorcist right now.
He is. And Pitino was the Exorcist back there. I got to go real quick. How's your team?
We're good. We won last night. We beat Cooper, and we got a big game tomorrow, man. And everybody should tune in and come over to Scott County because it's going to be the hottest game in the state. Scott County against Gray Cross and at Scott County High School. Two crosstown rivals, and Scott County used to be the big brother. The new ship came in town, and now things are even. And let's throw that ball up and let the chips fall where they may. It's going to be a fun day, and Scott County's going to be paralyzed for about 2 hours. because everybody in Scott County is going to be tuned in or either at the game or whatever, watching Great Crossing and Scott County go at it.
Sounds great. Really quick, what time is the game so if people want to go?
Varsity's at 7:30. It's going to be a big old to-do thing. We got a couple acknowledgments we need to have at halftime and first quarter, second quarter, third quarter. So it's going to be an extravaganza and good for Scott County and good for Georgetown and good for everybody involved.
Bless you, brother. Thank you so much.
All right, Bubs. Good sit talking to you, buddy. You always know that.
Hey, I'm lucky and blessed that you're my friend.
No doubt about it, man. Always love, Bubs. You know that.
I know. Thanks, Sean. That laughing, doesn't he, Jimmy? Always gets that laughing.
Got to.
Want to mention my dear friend Hal McCoy. I love his columns. Just love his columns. He starts with some depressing news. Jim Leland, one of the great managers, he's got stage 4 lung cancer, and you never saw him without a cigarette. And he used to cup the cigarette in the dugout when you weren't allowed to smoke, and smoke him in there. And he was tough. And he took over a Pirate team. I was there. They were the worst team when it came to chemistry in all of baseball. And he went crazy on him, and he turned it. He didn't take any crap from anybody. He got in the face of everybody that he needed to, and he turned him into a winner. And if he didn't like you as an umpire, as Hal puts in his column, it's a great column. If he didn't like you as an umpire, you knew it. But if you screwed up and he came out and he would say, quote, "Just tell me you missed the call and you won't see me again," end of quote. And he was true to his word, so says Hal. So if the umpire says I screwed up, guess what? That was the end of that. He let it go, and I always loved that about Jim Leland. Didn't know him well, but I knew him a little bit. So he had a cigarette in his hand as Hal tells the story, right? And he's going out to a Class A game. He sprints out of the dugout, disputing a call. Well, Jimmy, he forgot he had a lit cigarette in his hand. So on his way out to yell at the umpire, he sticks it, as Hal McCoy says, in his back pocket of a double-knit uniform. It burned a hole in the back of his pants, and he wasn't wearing anything under the pants but a jock strap. And by the way, if you know Leland, I'm surprised it didn't happen more than once. And he's got stuff in here about Mickey Lolich, one of the great left-handers who we just lost. And I didn't know this. He became a lefty because he couldn't throw a righty. He had a problem. One of the great lefties of all time. It's a great column. I love Hal. Hal is the best. Hopefully he can join us next week or the week after talking baseball. I like having coffee reading Hal in his Facebook columns. It's a pretty simple deal. Bob Kessling, that was unbelievable. God bless Bob with the stories. We had the Mark Pope press conference live, which you can hear on the podcast coming up in about a half hour. Anywhere you get podcasts, we're everywhere. Appreciate you listening. And Sean Woods, bless you, brother. Bless you, brother. Have a great day. Hopefully, finally, within a few days, this stuff melts. Brad Taylor coming up next. Matthew and Jimmy at 10 on Monday. I'll be back at noon. Thank you for listening. Please tell one friend, just one. And that's how this thing continues to spread. And I appreciate everyone who takes the time out of their day, whether live or at night on podcast or whatever, or anywhere in the country listening.